The galactic embassy of Zirin 4 stood like a shining crystal tower under the twin suns. Its walls glowed faintly, covered with living light creatures that danced across the surface. Inside, alien diplomats of many races walked through wide halls, speaking in dozens of languages. Every sound was strange, musical, and filled with echoing tones. Among them walked a single human Ethan Cole, a repair engineer from Earth. His job was simple: fix the translator system that allowed different species to understand one another. But for Ethan, nothing about this place felt simple. Every alien I turned toward him, some curious, others unsure. Humans were still new to the Galactic Union, and their reputation was mixed-bold, unpredictable, emotional. Ethan carried his small toolkit and smiled politely at anyone who looked his way. He had learned one thing about working with aliens: most of them respected calmness. On Zirin 4, the royal family especially valued discipline, silence, control. He followed a guard made of metal and flesh, a Zirin soldier whose scales shimmered like dark glass. The guard stopped at a tall golden door and said, "The translator room. Do not touch the upper panel. It is sacred." Ethan nodded. "Got it. Just fixing, not touching anything sacred." The door slid open with a soft hum. Inside was a high chamber filled with glowing panels and floating energy spheres. It looked more like a dream than a machine. And standing near the center, surrounded by attendants, was Princess Liara, the daughter of the Emperor. Ethan froze. He had read her file before coming Zirin Princess. Royal scientist fluent in 16 galactic languages, known for her calm and grace, but he had not expected her to look so different. Her body was tall and slender, covered in soft violet scales that shimmered under the light. Her eyes were golden, slit like a cat's, and her face had the beauty of something both alien and majestic. But to a human, she was strange beautiful in a way that made you question what beauty really meant. Liara turned her head, her movements slow and elegant. "You are the human engineer?" she asked, her translator glowing softly. "Yes, Your Highness," Ethan said, bowing a little awkwardly. "Name's Ethan Cole. Translator system's been lagging, so I'll check the circuits and recalibrate the energy field." The princess nodded. "Do so. Our diplomats grow frustrated when their words twist in transmission. Your species has skill with machines. Though you seem so fragile," Ethan chuckled lightly, "we make up for it with stubbornness." A few attendants whispered at the sound of his laugh. Zirin culture did not encourage laughter in royal halls, but Liara said nothing. She only watched as the human began his work. For the next hour, Ethan worked quietly. He unscrewed panels, adjusted circuits, and tapped on a small screen. Occasionally sparks flew, and the guards flinched, but he simply smiled and said, "All part of the job." Liara studied him in silence. Humans were small compared to her kind, their skin soft, their faces open and expressive. Yet there was something oddly strong about them, something unshakable. She had seen human soldiers in the war archives, but this one was different. He smiled often, even when alone. When Ethan finished, he wiped sweat from his forehead and said, "All done. Should work like new." Liara approached. "You do not fear mistakes?" He looked up, confused. "Mistakes? Everyone makes them. That's how we learn." Her golden eyes flickered with curiosity. "Your people laugh even when they err. You find joy in imperfection." Ethan grinned. "Well, if we waited to be perfect before smiling, we'd never smile at all." For a moment, something unspoken passed between them, a small bridge of understanding. The attendants noticed, whispering softly among themselves. Liara tilted her head slightly. "Human, tell me something. Your species, how do you see beauty?" Ethan blinked. "Beauty. That's a big topic." She folded her long fingers. "Among my kind, symmetry and brightness are perfection. But I have heard that to other species I appear frightening, ugly." Her voice grew softer. "Am I ugly to you?" The question was so unexpected that Ethan froze mid-breath. His mind raced. The hall went silent. Every guard, every attendant turned toward him. Even the translator lights dimmed slightly, waiting for his answer, and then he burst out laughing. It wasn't mocking laughter. It was the kind of laughter that came from surprise, warmth, and disbelief. He bent over, wiping a tear from his eye. Ugly? You? Oh, that's a good one. The guard stiffened instantly. One stepped forward, hand on his weapon. The air turned cold. The princess herself stared at him, confused. Ethan realized how it must have looked, but he couldn't stop smiling. Sorry, Your Highness, it's just... That's the most ridiculous question I've ever heard. Liara's tail twitched, a sign of rising emotion. You laugh at my face? Ethan shook his head quickly. No, not at all. I laugh because, where I come from, beauty isn't one shape or color. You'd turn heads back home. Those scales? They shine like starlight. You look like walking art. The translator stumbled over the word art, making it sound like artifact, and the attendants gasped. But Liara frowned, trying to understand. Art. You see me as art? Yeah, Ethan said, still smiling. Not scary, just different. But that's what makes it cool. For a long moment, silence filled the hall again. Then, unexpectedly, Liara's lips curved slightly, a small, unsure smile. Humans laugh to show comfort. Ethan nodded. Yeah. Sometimes laughter means happiness, not insult. It means the moment is too big for words. The princess studied him carefully. Strange. You laugh when others would bow in fear, Ethan said with a shrug. Humans laugh at fear too. Keeps it from winning. Something in those words made her expression soften. The guards relaxed slightly. The tension faded from the air. Liara turned away for a moment, gazing at the translator device glowing softly now that it worked again. Perhaps. Laughter is strength. Ethan grinned. It is. That's one of our superpowers. Her golden eyes returned to him. Superpower. Human thing, he explained. We have no claws, no scales, no natural armor. But we keep going. We find hope even when things look bad. We laugh in the dark. Liara tilted her head, thinking deeply. To her, laughter had always been a sound of disrespect, a weapon of shame. Yet this human made it sound like courage. Tell me, she asked softly, do all humans speak so boldly to royalty? Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Not really. Guess I forget titles sometimes. She looked at him a long while, then said, Do not forget this one. He chuckled again, and this time her smile widened just a little. The attendants exchanged worried glances. The Princess of Zirin had smiled something unheard of in years. After a pause, Liara said, You are unlike any being I have met. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Good different or bad different? Both, she answered simply. He laughed again. I'll take that as a compliment. Liara nodded slowly. Perhaps it is. Faint light pulsed from the repaired translator system, signaling perfect calibration. The mission was complete, but something else had just begun, something neither of them could name yet. As Ethan packed his tools, Liara continued to watch him. The sound of his laughter still echoed softly in her mind, like sunlight trapped in memory. It was strange. Comforting, when he bowed slightly before leaving, she spoke again quietly. Human, your laughter, it is not mockery. He looked back, smiling kindly. No, princess. It's appreciation. Sometimes the universe surprises us with something wonderful, and all we can do is laugh. For the first time, Liara looked at her reflection in the mirrored walls, not to judge, but to see herself differently. Maybe beauty wasn't symmetry. Maybe it was how someone made you feel when they looked at you without fear. As Ethan left the chamber, the guards followed silently. The princess stood alone, her golden eyes still fixed on the door where the human had gone. In the stillness, she whispered softly to herself, laughter as strength. And in that quiet hall of crystal and light, the alien princess smiled again, this time with a warmth that could melt stars. The next morning, the galactic embassy was filled with whispers. Word spread quickly across Zirin 4. The human laughed at the princess. Some said he had insulted her beauty. Others claimed she had smiled in return. For the Ziran people, both were shocking. In their culture, laughter in the royal hall was disrespectful, and a royal smile during duty was a sign of weakness. The court didn't know what to make of it, but Princess Lyra knew the truth. That laughter had not hurt her. It had awakened something inside her heart, something she could not name yet. Ethan Cole returned to the translator room early. He liked to double-check his work before handing in his final report. The royal guards watched him carefully this time, their glowing eyes following every move. When the princess entered, the guards straightened immediately. Her royal robe shimmered in the soft light, colored deep violet with threads of gold. Ethan gave her a friendly smile. "Good morning, Your Highness," he said. Liara's translator blinked softly as it converted her gentle tone. "Human, you returned early," Ethan shrugged. "I like to make sure everything's working fine. Machines can be tricky, you know." Liara stepped closer to the large, glowing panels. "Your world builds much, yet you still doubt your machines?" He grinned. "We doubt everything. That's how we keep improving." The princess looked at him curiously. "Doubt makes you better?" "Of course," Ethan said. "If you think you're perfect, you stop learning." Her golden eyes widened slightly. "On Ziran, perfection is honor. We must be flawless before others." Ethan chuckled softly. "That sounds exhausting." The translator hesitated, then rendered his words as, "That must bring great tiredness." Lyra thought about it for a moment. "Yes," she admitted quietly, "it does." There was silence between them for a while. Only the soft hum of the translator filled the air. Ethan sat on the floor, adjusting a few wires. He could feel the princess's gaze on him. She had questions, he could sense it. Finally she spoke. "Human, why did you laugh when I asked that question?" Ethan looked up. Her voice was calm, not angry, but filled with true curiosity. "Well," he began, "where I come from, beauty isn't one thing. It's not about being perfect. It's about being you. When you asked if you were ugly, it felt so strange because how could someone that unique even think like that?" The princess tilted her head slightly. "Unique, you mean? Unusual?" "Not just unusual," Ethan said with a smile. "Special. There's nobody like you. That's beautiful to me." Her tail flicked slowly, a sign of confusion and thought. "Among my kind, beauty is sameness. The more one matches the pattern, the more one is praised. Difference is wrong." Ethan leaned back on his hands and looked at her kindly. "Then I guess humanity would drive your people crazy. We love differences. Some people have freckles, some have scars, some have funny noses, but we think it's what makes them beautiful." Liara blinked. "You love what is flawed?" He nodded. "Exactly. Because flaws tell a story." The princess was silent again, her golden eyes distant. To her people, imperfection was shame. Yet here stood a creature with soft skin, no armor, and so many weaknesses, and he spoke as if those weaknesses were treasures. Later that day, Lyra invited Ethan to the observation garden of the palace. It was a floating terrace made of crystal glass, filled with flowers that glowed in the dark. The air shimmered with floating light dust, and the view of the twin suns setting was breathtaking. Ethan gasped softly. "Wow, this place looks like a dream." Lyra smiled faintly. "Few are allowed here. You should feel honored." He laughed lightly. "I do, though I still don't know the rules around here. I might break another one, just by breathing wrong." For a moment, she almost laughed too, but caught herself. Her kind did not laugh freely, yet his light tone made it tempting. She said, "You are brave to speak so loosely before me." Ethan smiled. "I don't think it's bravery. I just talk to people the same way, no matter who they are."
That is
"Rare," she said softly. They walked slowly through the glowing garden. Lyra stopped near a pond where small winged fish swam through the air. "Human," she said quietly, "I think I envy your people." Ethan blinked. "Envy us, why?" "Because you are free to laugh. Free to make mistakes. Free to show emotion." Her voice trembled slightly, which surprised him. "Here I am, watched every moment. Even my smile is measured." Ethan looked at her seriously. That sounds lonely. Liara turned her gaze to the glowing pond. It is. He crouched near the water, watching his reflection blur in the light. You know, on Earth, people say beauty fades, but kindness, laughter, courage, they last longer than any perfect face. She studied him carefully. You speak as if you have seen much pain. Ethan smiled sadly. Everyone has, princess. But that's what makes laughter important. It reminds us we're still alive. Her eyes softened. You make pain sound gentle, shook his head. It's not. But we humans, we don't let it win. Days passed, and the princess found herself thinking about the human more than she expected. She watched recordings of Earth images he had shared from his device. Mountains covered in snow, children laughing in the rain, people of every shape and color, dancing, smiling. None of them looked the same. It all seemed full of life. She realized she had never seen such open joy on Zirin. Her attendants whispered behind her back. The human has filled her mind with strange ideas. One said. The princess smiles more these days, said another. It is not royal, the first replied. Lyra ignored them. She had begun to paint her scales not with the perfect gold lines of her tradition, but with soft patterns of blue and silver inspired by human skies. The court stared in disbelief when she walked through the halls. When asked why she did it, she simply said, because it feels beautiful to me. That evening, she found Ethan again in the repair bay. Cleaning his tools? You have changed me, she said softly. He looked up surprised. I didn't mean to, but you did, she replied. Your words echo in my mind. Beauty is not perfection. Difference is not shame, Ethan smiled gently. That's good. The world's big enough for 1,000,000 kinds of beauty. Liara took a deep breath. I wish my people could understand that. Maybe they will, he said. Sometimes one voice can start a change. She looked at him thoughtfully. Do you believe that? He nodded. I have too. Otherwise, what's the point of speaking up? The princess turned her gaze to the stars visible through the window. You are strange, human. You speak like a philosopher, yet you call yourself an engineer, he chuckled. Engineers fix things, machines, bridges, even broken ideas sometimes. Liara smiled faintly. Perhaps my world is a machine that needs fixing. Then start with one screw, Ethan said playfully. Change begins small. Her eyes glowed with quiet wonder. You make even rebellion sound gentle. He looked at her, half joking, half serious. It's not rebellion, it's growth. The princess's voice turned soft. Growth. Yes. I like that word. They stood there in silence for a while, watching the stars outside. For the first time in her royal life, Liara didn't feel like a perfect statue built by tradition. She felt alive and certain, but free. And Ethan, watching her reflection in the glass, realized that something extraordinary was happening. The laughter that had once almost caused a diplomatic disaster had now become a bridge between two worlds. The human simple smile had done what grand speeches could not. It had reached the heart of a princess who had never known how to be imperfect. As they parted that night, Liara said quietly, Human, I think your laughter has changed me. Ethan grinned. Good. Maybe it'll change the world too. She looked at him, her golden eyes warm. Perhaps it already has. The days on 0 and 4 passed, like silver clouds, drifting across twin suns. Ethan Cole had finished his work on the translator system, but the royal family requested him to stay a little longer as a technical advisor. At least that was the official reason. Everyone in the embassy knew the truth. The princess wanted to learn more about the human who laughed at her question. For Ethan, the stay became a daily adventure. Each morning, a royal guard escorted him through the shining palace halls to the princess's study. They're surrounded by books made of light and walls that changed color with mood. Princess Liara would wait, eager to learn about Earth. On one such morning, she greeted him with an unusual question. Human, your people destroy and rebuild. You fight, you laugh, you create. Which one shows your true nature? Ethan set down his data tablet and smiled. All of it, princess. We're complicated. We make mistakes, but we always try again. That's what makes us human. Liara's golden eyes glimmered softly. Try again. Even after failure? He nodded. Especially after failure. She sat quietly, thinking. On her world, failure was shame. Those who failed were often removed from their roles forever. But here was this small, soft creature talking about failure like it was a teacher instead of a curse. In the days that followed, Liara asked endless questions. What is music? Why do humans paint? Why do you cry when you are happy? Ethan answered as best as he could, often showing her pictures and videos from his small tablet. He played old Earth songs, soft melodies of piano, bright laughter of street festivals, the peaceful sound of rain. At first, Liara didn't understand music. Xirintones were made for communication, not emotion. But when Ethan played a slow violin song, she went silent. The soft notes filled the air like falling stars. What is this feeling? She whispered. Ethan smiled. That's the point, princess. Music makes you feel something you can't explain. Hurts, but in a good way. That's beauty, Ethan said gently. She looked at him with new eyes. You humans find beauty in pain too? He nodded. Sometimes pain reminds us that we're alive and that we still care. Soon, Liara began experimenting. She took the glowing minerals from her planet and started mixing their colors in unusual ways. For the first time, she painted not for symmetry, but for emotion. Her attendants gasped when they saw her designs, imperfect shapes, flowing and wild. Like human art. Your Highness, this is not proper, one said nervously. Liara smiled calmly. Perhaps proper is not the same as right. The attendants didn't understand, but Ethan did. He watched her paint with quiet joy, proud of how quickly she had embraced something humans valued deeply, creativity without fear. As days passed, their lessons became friendship. Liara laughed, more easily now, soft, musical laughter that surprised even herself. One afternoon, they sat in the garden again. The air shimmered with light dust, and the twin suns painted the sky orange and pink. Ethan handed her a small metal object. This is a mirror from my ship, he said. Humans use it to check their reflection. Liara took it carefully, staring at the image that looked back. She tilted her head, examining her scales, her golden eyes, the sharp edges of her face. Strange, she said. When I look in this mirror now, I do not feel fear. Ethan leaned back, smiling. You shouldn't. You look like yourself. That's enough. I think I understand now. Beauty is not what others say is what you accept in yourself. Exactly, Ethan said proudly. That's very human thinking. Liara smiled. Then perhaps I am a little human now. However, not everyone in the palace shared her joy. The royal council began to whisper. The princess has changed, one elder said. She wears strange colors and speaks of human ideas. She smiles too often, said another. The people will think her weak. Human must be removed, declared a third voice. Before his laughter poisons her mind. Word of the council's unease reached the emperor himself, a towering Xirin with silver scales and eyes like cold fire. He was proud of his daughter, but bound by ancient tradition. Summon her, he ordered. That evening, Liara stood before her father in the grand throne chamber. The air was heavy, the lights dim. You have been spending much time with the human, the emperor said slowly. You speak strangely now. You question our customs. Liara bowed her head slightly. Father, the human has shown me new ways of seeing. We do not have to fear difference. The emperor frowned. Difference breaks unity, or makes it stronger, she replied softly. Enough. His voice thundered through the hall. You are heir to this world. You will act as your people expect. The human will leave tomorrow. Her heart sank. She wanted to argue, but she saw the guards tense. She bowed again. Yes, father. When she left the hall, her eyes burned with silent tears. Ethan was packing his tools when Liara entered his chamber later that night. She looked calm, but her voice was quiet. The council wishes for you to return to Earth, she said. He sighed. Yeah, I figured that might happen. I've been getting a lot of nervous stares lately. Tried to defend you, she said. But my father believes you are changing me too much. Ethan gave her a small smile. Maybe that's not a bad thing. She looked down. He does not see it that way. He stepped closer, trying to make her understand. Change is scary, princess. Even on Earth, people resist it. But that's how the world moves forward. She lifted her gaze, eyes shimmering. Ethan, will your people think it strange that I learned from you? He chuckled softly. Not at all. Humans love stories like that. We believe every friendship changes the universe, even if it's small. She smiled weakly. Then this friendship will change mine. They stood in silence for a long moment. The air hummed gently around them. Finally, she said, before you leave, teach me one last thing about your people. Ethan thought for a moment. All right. Humans have something we call hope. It's what keeps us going when everything else fails. Even when things seem dark, we believe something better can still happen. Hope, she repeated slowly, tasting the word. A feeling without proof? Exactly, Ethan said. Sometimes, hope is the only thing that saves us. Liara nodded thoughtfully. Then I will keep that word close to my heart, he smiled. Good. That's the best lesson I can give. The next day, Ethan prepared to leave. The princess came to see him off at the starport. Her robe painted in soft blue and silver patterns. You're really keeping the new look, Ethan said with a grin. She nodded proudly. It feels right, as his ship powered up. She stepped forward and said, Ethan, your laughter once shocked me, but now I understand it was never insult. It was life, he smiled warmly. Keep laughing, princess. It'll make the stars jealous. For a brief moment, she wanted to tell him to stay, but her duty chained her words. Instead, she said softly, May your world know that a Ziran princess learned to smile because of you. Ethan saluted playfully. And may your world remember that laughter isn't weakness, it's strength. Then he boarded his ship. As it rose into the sky, the princess watched until it disappeared among the stars. A single tear rolled down her cheek, not from sadness, but from gratitude. For the first time in Zirine history, the royal gardens echoed softly, not with silence, but with the faint sound of a princess's laughter. The departure of Ethan Cole left a silence in the halls of the Ziran palace. Princess Liara tried to return to her normal duties, reading reports, attending meetings, and sitting through long, ceremonial discussions, but everything felt different now. The light in the palace seemed dimmer. The laughter she had learned to love no longer echoed in her ears. Even her painted scales, once bright and bold, looked dull under the cold gaze of the council. But deep inside her heart, the lessons of the human lived on. She could still hear his words, Keep laughing, princess. It'll make the stars jealous. A week later, the Imperial Council gathered in the Grand Hall. It was a place of great formality, where silence ruled and every voice echoed with authority. The council members, tall Zarans in dark robes, stood in a circle around the throne of Emperor Thalos. Liara's father. The emperor's expression was calm but heavy. We meet today to discuss the change in my daughter, he said. Her behavior has caused concern among our people. Counselor Zarek, the eldest among them, stepped forward. Your Majesty, the princess's new ideas are dangerous. She speaks of imperfection as beauty. She paints herself in strange patterns. Even her manner of speech has become soft, another counselor added. The people whisper that the princess has lost her royal dignity. A third said coldly, It began when the human came. The emperor remained silent for a long moment. Then his deep voice filled the hall. The human has returned to his world. His influence should fade soon. But Counselor Zarek shook his head. Her influence grows, not fades. Yesterday, young Zarans in the market painted their scales in strange colors. They called it human art. The infection spreads. Majesty. At those words, Liara entered the hall. She stood tall, wearing her silver and blue robes proudly. The counselors fell silent. Her calm steps echoed through the grand chamber as she approached the throne. Father, she said, bowing lightly, if it is an infection to make people smile, then perhaps it is one our world needs. Gasps filled the room. Counselor Zarek glared. Your Highness, this behavior is unfit for one of royal blood. Ayara met his gaze. And yet, Counselor, it is honest. Can you say the same of fear? The old counselor's tail twitched with anger. You dare speak of fear in this hall? I do, she said firmly. For too long we have lived by fear. Fear of being imperfect. Fear of standing out. Fear of laughter. But fear has not made us stronger. It has made us cold. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Enough, Liara. You are young and idealistic. These thoughts may sound noble, but they risk the order of our people. She bowed her head, her voice calm but steady. Then perhaps our order is the problem. The hall went completely still. The Emperor rose from his throne, his tall form casting a long shadow. You forget your place, my daughter. She looked up at him, her voice trembling but full of courage. No, father. For the first time in my life, I have found it. The next day, the council sent secret messengers across the city, warning officials and officers about the dangerous influence of the human and his teachings. But something unexpected happened. The people didn't turn away from the princess. Instead, more Zarans began to follow her example. Artists started painting their scales in bright, uneven colors. Young students began writing songs, strange, emotional tunes inspired by the human music she had shared. The city of glass and silence slowly began to hum with color and sound. The Emperor watched with worry. This cannot continue, he told his advisors. We must restore order before the traditions are forgotten. Yet deep down, even he could not ignore the quiet happiness spreading through the people. One evening, Liara stood alone in the royal garden. The glowing trees swayed gently in the warm wind. She looked up at the stars, wondering where Ethan's ship might be now. I wish you could see this, she whispered softly. Your laughter is changing my world. Suddenly a small droid flew toward her, a messenger drone from the spaceport. It projected a tiny image of Ethan. Double quotes, hello, princess, his recorded voice said with a cheerful grin. Just wanted to say I made it back safely. I've been telling everyone about Zirin 4. You're all amazing, even if your guards nearly scared me to death, Lyra smiled. Ethan's voice continued. You told me once that your world feared change. Don't let that fear stop you. Laughter and kindness can build bridges faster than any machine. And remember, being different isn't dangerous. It's destiny. The message ended. Liara stood quietly, tears glimmering in her eyes. Then she looked toward the palace, her heart burning with new determination. The next morning, she walked straight into the council chamber again. Her steps were calm, but her presence carried a new strength. I have something to show you, she said. The counselors frowned but followed as she led them to the royal balcony overlooking the capital city. Below, thousands of Zarans had gathered in the streets. Their scales shimmered with colors of every kind, blue, green, red, gold, silver. They sang softly in tones never heard before, a melody inspired by human music. Counselor Zarek's voice shook. What? What have they done? They have found joy, Lyra said. And it began with one human's laughter. The Emperor stood beside her, silent as he watched the people. For the first time in years, he saw something he had almost forgotten, happiness. Lyra turned to him. Father, we cannot silence this. The world is ready to breathe again. The Emperor looked at her long and hard. If I allow this change, the council will revolt. Then lead them, she said softly. Not with fear, but with faith. He studied her for a long moment. Finally, he sighed deeply. You sound like that human. Lyra smiled. Then perhaps he was wiser than we thought. But peace never comes easily. The next day, a group of strict traditionalists within the army refused to accept the Emperor's quiet tolerance. They claimed the princess had corrupted the royal bloodline with alien ideas. A rebellion began to stir, not with weapons, but with words. They marched in the capital, chanting for purity and tradition. When the council met again, chaos filled the chamber. This is your doing, shouted Counselor Zarek. Your laughter has turned our order into chaos. Lyra stood calmly before them. If order means silence, then yes, I have broken it. Then you are a traitor, Zarek hissed. Before anyone could react, the Emperor raised his hand. Enough. He looked at his daughter, not with anger this time, but with understanding. No traitor stands before me, he said. Only someone brave enough to see what I could not. Zarek's eyes widened. Majesty. The Emperor turned to the council. We will not go backward. The princess is right. Change is upon us. And perhaps it is time we learn from the humans we once called reckless. The chamber went silent. Liara bowed deeply. Thank you, Father. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Do not thank me. You have reminded me of something I forgot long ago, Hope. That night, Zirin-4 shone brighter than ever. The cities glowed with color. Laughter filled the air, and the people felt free to express themselves without shame in the sky above. A transmission signal pulsed from the royal station, message sent across the stars toward Earth. Its words were simple. To the humans of Earth, your laughter changed our world. We are learning to smile. Far away aboard a human freighter in deep space, Ethan Cole received the message. He read it twice, then laughed softly. Guess she really did it, he said. His crewmates looked at him curiously. Who? Ethan smiled. An alien princess who finally learned how to laugh. He turned his gaze to the stars, whispering to himself, Good job, princess. In the royal garden of Zirin-4, Princess Liara stood beneath the twin moons, surrounded by flowers that now glowed in every color. She closed her eyes and smiled. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of being different, and across the galaxy, a human's laughter still echoed in her heart, a sound stronger than fear, brighter than tradition, and more powerful than any law. The morning sun rose over Zirin-4, casting long beams of golden light across the city. Princess Liara stood on the balcony of her palace, looking out at the streets below. The once silent capital was now alive with color, music, and laughter. Children painted their scales in wild patterns, musicians sang strange yet joyful songs. And even the guards smiled quietly as they walked their posts. Liara's chest swelled with pride. The change she had feared might bring chaos had instead filled her world with joy. And it all began with one human, one tiny, fragile creature who had dared to laugh at her question. Her mind wandered to Ethan Cole, floating somewhere in the galaxy, his laughter echoing across the stars. She remembered the first time he had burst out laughing at her. At the time, she had felt shock, disbelief, and even anger. Yet now she understood. His laughter was not mockery, it was honesty, warmth, and courage. It had freed her from fear. The royal chamber filled with the soft hum of hovering lights. Liara turned to face her attendants. Prepare for the broadcast, she said. It is time to speak to the galaxy. Her attendants looked nervous. Your Highness, are you certain? Not all planets may understand. She raised her hand. They will understand. They must. It is time the galaxy learns that fear and perfection are not the only paths. Laughter, courage, and truth are stronger than any law or armor. With a deep breath, she walked to the royal broadcast room. The camera systems activated, transmitting her image to countless star systems across the galaxy. Ships in orbit, planets far and near, every screen lit up with her violet scales shimmering in the sunlight. She began to speak, her voice calm yet filled with emotion. My name is Liara, Princess of Zirin-4. I once asked a question I feared would make others laugh. Am I ugly? And a human named Ethan Cole laughed. At first I was shocked, but that laughter taught me something far greater than fear. It taught me truth, courage, and joy. Beauty is not one shape, one color, or one form. It is the reflection of life in every being. It is laughter, hope, and kindness. It is the courage to be yourself even when others do not understand. My people have learned to see this now, and so can yours. Let your differences shine. Let your imperfections become your strength. Laugh freely. Speak honestly. Love openly. The galaxy is vast, and life is too precious to waste on fear. Let us choose courage. Let us choose hope. Let us choose to be alive. When her broadcast ended, Silence filled the control room for a long moment. Then, a low murmur of approval spread across Zern. -4, the Emperor approached, standing beside his daughter. His silver scales reflected the warm light, and for the first time, his expression was soft rather than stern. "You spoke wisely," he said quietly. "Perhaps wiser than I could have imagined." Lyra turned to him. "It was not I alone, Father. It was the human who showed me that laughter can be stronger than fear." The Emperor's eyes glimmered. "Then humanity is not as fragile as I once thought." "No," Lyra agreed. "They are full of courage. Even the smallest human can teach the largest lessons." Across Zirin 4, the streets filled with celebration. Artists painted murals inspired by human stories. Musicians composed new melodies, blending Zirin tones with earth instruments. Children laughed freely, no longer afraid of being imperfect. And in the palace gardens, Lyra walked slowly among glowing flowers. She smiled not just for herself, but for her people, for the galaxy, and for the human who had changed everything. For weeks she heard reports from nearby systems. Many species were inspired by her broadcast. Planets began to open schools for laughter, art, and music. Diplomats, who once feared mistakes, now spoke freely. Exchanging ideas instead of hiding behind strict protocol, Zirin 4 became a beacon, a symbol of courage, individuality, and hope. And humans, small and fragile as they were, became legends. Meanwhile, far away, Ethan Cole received word of Lyra's speech. He sat in the observation deck of his ship, staring at the stars. The galaxy had never felt smaller and larger at the same time. He smiled softly. "So that's what happens when a human teaches a princess to laugh," he murmured. His crew gathered around him, curious. "What are you smiling about?" one asked. "The galaxy is changing," Ethan said quietly. "And it started with a simple truth. Courage and laughter are stronger than fear." Looked back toward Zirin 4, a tiny speck now against the vast black of space. "Good job, princess," he whispered back on Zirin 4. Lyra's transformation became complete. She no longer worried about her scales, her form, or what others might think. She painted, danced, laughed, and spoke freely. The people followed her example, embracing imperfections and celebrating differences. One evening, she visited the royal balcony, gazing at the stars where Ethan might be. Her golden eyes glimmered with light. "He taught me something important," she said softly to herself. "That strength isn't always measured in power. Sometimes it is measured in honesty, laughter, and hope." She looked down at the city below. The streets were alive with sound and color, music and laughter blending together in harmony. Even the guards, once stiff and solemn, smiled as they watched the people. Lyra placed a hand over her heart. "Perhaps this is what true leadership means," she whispered. "To inspire courage, to share joy, and to let others see themselves as they truly are." Weeks later, she received a delegation from the Galactic Union. They came to learn how Zirin 4 had changed so quickly, how a world had moved from fear to hope in a matter of months. Lyra welcomed them with warmth. She shared stories of her people, her mistakes, and most importantly, of the human who laughed at her question. "Ethan Cole taught me that being different is strength," she said proudly. "He taught me that laughter is courage. And most of all, he reminded me that life is too precious to waste on fear." The delegates listened with wide eyes. Many had feared the human species. Now, they respected it. Humanity was no longer small, fragile, or irrelevant. It had power to inspire, to teach, and to change entire worlds. Months passed, and Zirin 4 continued to flourish. Princess Lyra's smile became legendary. Her story spread across galaxies, reaching planets and stars far beyond her home. And humans, though distant, became symbols of courage and hope wherever her story was told. She often remembered Ethan's words. "Keep laughing, princess. It'll make the stars jealous." Now she understood fully. Laughter had not just changed her, it had changed her world, and it would continue to echo across the universe for generations. In the quiet of the palace gardens, under the twin moons, Princess Liara stood alone. The wind stirred her painted scales. She closed her eyes. A soft memory filled her heart. The day she had asked, trembling, "Am I ugly?" And then the human had laughed. It was not cruel, not mocking, but full of truth. And in that laughter, she had found herself. Now she smiled fully, freely, and without fear. Her reflection in the pond shimmered, not as a perfect image, but as a vibrant, living being. Yes, she whispered to the stars above, I am beautiful, and so is my world. Said across the galaxy, somewhere far away. A human engineer looked at the stars and smiled too. For the smallest action, a simple, honest laugh had changed everything. The princess's heart, the people's spirits, and even the galaxy itself had been transformed by courage, laughter, and hope, and that was the greatest power of all.